Tonight, anger over the death of a school principal killed by a driver deprived of sleep after a drug binge. Mayhem on the Monash, 2 fatal accidents in minutes. A woman hit after she stepped out of her car. 5-year-old set to get COVID jabs within weeks. Australia facing fuel and beer supply worries for Christmas. Exclusive pictures as police swoop on a suspect after a road rage fire attack on a young driver. And England fighting back at the Gabba as love rises from the ashes.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor starts now.
Good evening. A heartbroken family has hit out at the jail sentence handed to a killer driver who ran down a grandmother, describing it as a savage blow. Newly released video shows Christopher Hislop driving erratically just before he hit the school principal. He was sleep deprived after a drug binge lasting days.
These pictures just released by a judge show cyclist Deborah Locko didn't stand a chance. The man who hit her hadn't slept for days after a drug binge.
Debbie was out innocently riding her bike and her life was snuffed out by some irresponsible person. Well, he's not even a person.
Driver Christopher Hislop was sentenced to 9 years behind bars for killing the 60-year-old grandmother.
It's just manifestly inadequate. It's a slap in the face.
When the former school principal was struck on Beach Road in May last year, she was catapulted onto Hislop's windscreen. But instead of stopping, the father of 3 drove away.
As it became apparent what had occurred, you started shaking your hands, saying, I hit him, and oh shit, we got to get out of here, we got to get out of here.
Shouldn't have been behind the wheel of a car, and her life was taken in an instant.
In sentencing today, Judge Elizabeth Brymer acknowledged Hislop wasn't driving under the influence, but he'd taken so many drugs in the days before, he was as impaired as a driver blowing 0.2.
The dash cam footage is disturbing in its illumination of just how likely it was that something would go wrong. Loco's death is solely attributable to your actions in driving your car while impaired by fatigue.
Ms Locko's son says he now avoids Beach Road altogether and told the court on the night of the crash he drove up and down here looking for someone who'd never come home.
The family suffer every day. She was very much loved, she was a great person and she's sorely missed.
Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
2 fatal accidents within minutes of each other have caused mayhem on the Monash freeway. It was shut for hours after the twin tragedies claimed the lives of a motorcyclist and a woman hit by a truck after she stepped out of her car.
The woman had pulled over to the side of the freeway. She stepped out of her car and was hit by the truck. It's believed the woman was on the phone at the time and the driver had no time to avoid her. The outbound lanes of the Monash freeway were closed for hours, leaving thousands of cars backed up for kilometres.
I saw there was like police cars and everything. Everyone was gathered, like traffic was jammed.
All forced to eventually pass by the confronting scene.
There was some kids, they got scared because they were like passing down from this subway and they saw it.
Detectives from the Major Collision Investigation Unit piecing together the circumstances leading to the crash. The truck driver stopped and was questioned but not charged. 20 minutes earlier on the same freeway, a motorcyclist crashed and died at Doveton.
Today's fatalities add to police concerns about the Christmas road toll and what will happen when so many Victorians hit the road for the holidays.
218 people have been killed on our roads this year, despite months in lockdown. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
The COVID-19 vaccine has now been approved for children aged 5 to 11. A lower dose of the Pfizer jab will be rolled out ahead of the start of the new school year, but not all parents are on board just yet.
Hello. Perhaps the only thing more confronting for a child than an injection is a Prime Minister.
Hello, how are you? What's your name?
Mr Morrison meeting a handful of the more than 2 million children now approved to get the vaccine.
This is another important step forward in our vaccination program.
The expert advisory group ATAGI deciding Pfizer was safe for 5 to 11-year-olds. Bookings will open this month with shots available from January 10, just weeks out from the start of the new school year.
It protects our children it protects their families, and it protects their schools.
Children will wait 8 weeks between shots, not 3 like adults, and the doses are much smaller, a third of the adult shot.
It's not just because they're smaller than adults, but also because they've got a very robust immune system.
Instead of the purple topped vials for adult doses, child doses will be identified with orange tops. Only Pfizer accepted for now, but Moderna is seeking approval.
Giving parents the choice.
How safe is it? They're watching closely for heart inflammation issues, but in the US, 5 million children aged 5 to 11 have had a shot with no serious reactions reported. And the Pfizer trials show it's 90% effective.
The adverse effects for this vaccine for little children are almost negligible. It is really safe.
The most common side effects are painful arm, fatigue and headaches.
We've looked at the evidence and we've looked at the data. It is very safe, it is very effective.
The government says the participation rate for standard child vaccines for things like measles and chickenpox is 95% for 5-year-olds in Australia, but they may be struggling to find the same enthusiasm for the COVID vaccines, according to the latest polls. A survey of parents by the Royal Children's Hospital finding 48% will vaccinate their kids, 30% are undecided and 22% are hesitant. The overwhelming majority saying their major concern was vaccine safety. 10-year-old Ethan Davis, though, will be getting his.
If I ever go back into hospital again, it protects the nurses.
Already taking weekly shots for Crohn's disease, another jab won't worry him.
He's got an autoimmune condition, which, makes us want to have him to have the vaccine more.
Questions, though, on the vaccine booster program. The AMA says it's unviable. Federal funding cuts leaving them with $24 a shot. Not enough.
This has been a bit of a slap in the face after such a great effort.
Just as Pfizer announced overnight, more vaccines may be needed. Not 3, but 4 in total to fight off future variants. Chris Reason, 7 News.
Daniel Andrews has used his new pandemic powers for the first time. Emma O'Sullivan is at State Parliament for us tonight, and Emma, it means Victorians won't be living under a state of emergency.
Mike, the controversial laws might have changed, but Victorians still need to abide by all the pandemic rules, including the vaccinated economy and the requirement to wear a mask in some settings. So Daniel Andrews has made his first formal pandemic declaration. It comes into effect December 15 and will stay in place for at least 4 weeks. These new laws shift a lot of power from Brett Sutton to the Premier and his Health Minister, but legally they're still required to consult the Chief Health Officer, and then that advice has to be made public. It's going to be tabled in Parliament. Meanwhile, a further 2 Omicron cases have been identified in Victoria. 2 returned travellers. They were passengers on the same flight that arrived from Doha 10 days ago. A third passenger on that flight has also tested positive for COVID, and genomic sequencing is now underway to see if they have the same variant.
Em, thank you. Victoria is deep in debt and will be for years, with the Delta outbreak triggering an $8 billion budget blowout. But the public finances will get a revenue lift thanks to the booming property market.
The Treasurer touting an economic comeback for Victoria.
The economic upswing is well and truly underway. We're in an extremely strong position to recover.
The state's budget deficit is predicted to skyrocket to $19.5 billion this financial year, a blowout of almost $8 billion. Treasury blaming the Delta outbreak for the hit to its balance sheets.
I put it down essentially to the investment that states had to make due to the 5th and 6th lockdowns.
An additional $2.4 billion was spent on the COVID-19 health response, including $640 million on securing PPE. The budget update forecasts by 2025 the state will owe a staggering $162 billion in net debt.
Most obviously, we've made very substantial contributions to businesses during the course of this pandemic.
How can you get this debt under control while your population is falling, while your birth rate is down, and while people are fleeing the state?
To pay it down, the Andrews government is banking on the unemployment rate dropping back to pre-pandemic lows and an increase of $27 billion in tax revenue. With help from the booming property market, it's expecting to collect a boost in stamp duty, up $7.7 billion and $4.3 billion more in land tax, as well as vehicle and insurance taxes. Not included in this budget update are the expected blowouts of some of the government's major infrastructure projects. The Treasurer only admitting there are time and cost pressures on its ambitious list of road and rail upgrades.
We're going to get clobbered with that mistake, that blunder.
Jade Vincent, 7 News.
Actor Paul Mercurio is hoping to run for the Labor Party in next year's state election. The Strictly Ballroom star has put his hand up to be selected for the seat of Hastings. The Andrews government is facing growing instability, with 7 sitting MPs told their political careers are over. Most of them were aligned with sacked power broker Adam Sonurek. Some have vowed to fight the pre-selection challenges. Beer and diesel don't mix, but they're at the forefront of worldwide shortages tonight. Supplies of Corona are dwindling, so too an important ingredient in many truck engines that could lead to empty shelves in just 2 months.
Coronavirus affecting Corona beer, an irony that tonight is reality. Supply chain problems from here to Mexico, plus a worldwide pallet shortage are taking the fizz out of beer stocks.
Pallet shortages are becoming an ongoing issue across the board.
And if truckies' predictions are accurate, a shortage of fuel additive AdBlue could bring their industry to a halt.
We believe we're 2 to 3 months away from stopping all the fleets.
An ingredient in AdBlue sourced from China is in short supply. The federal government says multiple shipments of refined urea are on their way, providing about 2 weeks additional supply. But it won't stop panic buying.
Well, it's a bit like the toilet paper. What it means is that they're worried about their future supplies and their future business.
At the Transport Association Christmas lunch, an AdBlue shortage had one word.
Catastrophic.
They say if trucks stop, so too will deliveries of food and clothes. The Trucking Association says a small number of truckies are illegally tampering with their engines to use water instead of AdBlue. The trucks run fine, but they emit about 40% more emissions.
I think we're going to eventually have to find an alternative to AdBlue, and it has to be manufactured here in Australia.
A Christmas wish that might not come in time. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Road rage has escalated in Epping when a motorcyclist followed a driver home and threw a firebomb into his car. Police moved quickly to get the rogue rider off the streets.
Police with a warrant moved in to arrest a suspect wanted over a shocking road rage attack in Epping. They found their man in a room under the house.
Mate, I'm cooperating, yeah?
Okay. 35-year-old Hussein Kishi lives next to where the road rage flashpoint began last night, when a dirt bike rider came out of Parklands and almost collided with a car. They stopped 2 blocks away and argued. The furious rider set fire to a rag, believed to be soaked in petrol from his bike's fuel tank, and threw it inside the car, its interior, and the 19-year-old motorist caught alight. The victim jumped out and took off his hoodie, leaving it burning on the ground as the rider fled. Did you set fire to that man?
Off, mate. Off.
The suspect's sister was surprised by the early morning raid at their house.
I thought, okay, come in, I guess. I had nothing else to say.
Because you got nothing to hide.
That's it.
Detectives seized evidence, including fuel, but no motorbike. It's believed the bike was blue. This one under the house wasn't. Do you think he did it?
I wasn't around, I don't know. He's not the type, but I don't know.
What type is he, your brother?
He's he's got a big heart.
Residents who heard the argument then saw the flames, came out with buckets of water to help the victim. He suffered burns to his legs, chest, neck and arms. Police have charged Hussein Kishi with 15 offences, including intentionally and recklessly causing serious injury and conduct endangering life. Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Australia is ripping up another defence contract with Europe for a fleet of high-tech American aircraft. Troubled Taipan choppers will be ditched for Black Hawks and Seahawks in a multi-billion-dollar deal to increase our military capability.
Grounded 9 times in 14 years,
deemed a project of concern for a decade. Australia's 47 Taipan helicopters will be ditched.
The Taipans weren't meeting their marks. Simple as that.
Replaced over the next 5 years by up to 40 US Black Hawks and 12 Seahawks.
The Indo-Pacific is a very uncertain region, and we want the best equipment available for the Australian Defence Force.
Just weeks after dumping the $90 billion subs deal with France, pulling a 16-year maintenance deal with Taipan manufacturer Airbus, which also has French links, though the government isn't anticipating a diplomatic war this time.
I don't expect so.
The Taipans have been plagued by problems: floors collapsing, shell casings flying back into the cabin, guns unable to be fired while troops are exiting.
Sadly, the Taipans didn't do what we needed them to do.
The first 6 Black Hawks are expected in 2023, the full fleet by 2026. Some Taipans may be kept for humanitarian missions, the others sold off. The cost? Peter Dutton says the deal will deliver a superior fleet of helicopters and save taxpayers billions. Maintaining the Taipans to 2037 would have cost $9.5 billion. The Black Hawk's price tag, $7 billion, saving $2.5 billion.
The reason why we got the Taipans in the first place was that the government tried to save money.
And that just didn't fly. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Melbourne's hopes of hosting the 5th Ashes Test appear dashed. Mitch Cleary has breaking details. And Mitch, the Tasmanians are pretty confident it will be in Hobart.
Mike, there will be no day-night test here at the MCG. Instead, Tasmanians celebrating what will soon be announced as their first ever Ashes Test to be played under lights in front of 14,000 fans. The Tasmanian government has tipped in millions to ensure Hobart has edged out Melbourne, Adelaide and Sydney. Prime Minister Scott Morrison even backing their cause in recent days. The January 14 blockbuster that will be played over 5 days was moved away from Perth due to their strict border laws and could well decide the series in Hobart. Mike?
Mitch Cleary, thank you. They come from opposite sides of the pitch, but 2 cricket fans have put their Ashes rivalry aside for love. Rob, who's in the Barmy Army, surprised Aussie girlfriend Nat by popping the question during this morning's play. The pair met 4 years ago. That's the last time England toured for the Ashes. Isn't love grand? England is digging its heels in on day 3 at the Gabba, and Tim Watson, they're not going down without a fight.
Mike, Joe Root is leading by example with the bat chipping away at Aussie's lead in Brisbane, but the Aussies are still in front after Travis Head continued his stunning form, although David Warner is in doubt with bruised ribs, plus the one St Kilda player who could match it with an Aussie Olympian, and no high fives at the Big Bash. We'll talk to the Melbourne Stars recruit who'll be isolated from his team during tonight's match. I'll see you again soon.
OK, thanks, Tim. A Ballarat mother charged over a lockdown Facebook post is facing a long court battle. Up next, Zoe Bueller is speaking out about her arrest and her fight for justice. Also tonight, caught in the act, a disgraced star guilty of faking anti-gay and racist attacks on himself. Shane Warne makes a surprising admission.
But they were second.
Plus, class actions from our police, why they're stepping up in schools. And later, Hollywood making movies in Melbourne's north. An exclusive look behind the scenes of Woody Woodpecker. A Ballarat mother arrested in her pyjamas during last year's lockdown is facing a court battle that could take 2 years. Zoe Bueller is accused of using social media to organise a rally when Victorians were under stay-at-home orders.
15 months of frustration.
Oh, I feel sick. I haven't even been able to eat today, but just the nerves and the fear.
Now Zoe Bueller will have to wait another 9 months to have her case heard.
I was going to stay home and join by the WebEx, but I'm so sick of doing that in front of my children.
The Ballarat mother was arrested in her home last year. Pregnant and wearing her pyjamas, she was handcuffed.
You're under arrest in relation to incitement.
Incitement.
What's that?
My 2 kids are here. I have an ultrasound in an hour.
Come on.
I'm happy to delete the post. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Police allege she encouraged people to leave their homes and breach public health laws when she posted to Facebook about a Freedom Day protest. She's challenging that charge. But appearing via video link in the Ballarat Magistrates Court, the magistrate muted her when she tried to speak before she was told her matter wouldn't be heard until August next year, 2 years after the alleged crime.
It's hard. It's so hard to get out of victim mode when I've still got this hanging over my head and I can't be someone who my children can be proud of.
The 28-year-old telling 7 News the delay isn't fair on her or her family. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Controversial plans for a quarry at Arthur's Seat have been scrapped. The Ross Trust owns the land and wanted to rebuild an abandoned quarry on the site. The organisation says it ditched the move over community backlash and misinformation. A local environmental group is now pushing for the area to become public land. Actor Jussie Smollett has been convicted of staging a hate crime against himself. He claimed he was hurt in a racist, homophobic attack and is now facing jail time for orchestrating his fake ordeal.
Actor Jussie Smollett, minutes after learning the most watched performance of his life,
Did you lie on the stand?
had been judged unbelievable. It's the crime that cost him his TV role. Now the 39-year-old is convicted of faking a racist, homophobic attack in which he was roughed up in front of a surveillance camera and had a noose hung over his head.
He jimmied with the rope to make the noose look closer to his throat.
Any weapons or anything inside the apartment?
The noose still on as police entered Smollett's apartment.
You want to take it off or anything?
Two brothers claimed Smollett had paid them to stage the hate crime posing as Trump supporters. The then president seized on the claim.
That case in Chicago is a disgrace to our nation.
In court, Jussie Smollett called the brothers liars and told jurors there was no hoax. The jury's response? Guilty on 5 of 6 disorderly conduct charges. Jail time now a possibility, though not likely. His lawyers say he's certain to appeal.
He's committed to clearing his name and he is 100% confident.
He's also getting free advice from opposing lawyers.
It is time to cut the act. Just come clean.
In the United States, Tim Lester, 7 News.
Spin king Shane Warne is coming to the big screen in a feature-length documentary. The film is promising an extraordinary untold story and features interviews with Warne and his children.
Cricket was always my #1 priority. That doesn't mean I didn't value my family, but they were second.
Shane will screen for a limited time in Australian cinemas from January 6. A preschool has been evacuated as torrential rain caused flooding and landslides in Sydney. Toddlers were carried out one by one over rising waters. On the south coast, streets were quickly inundated with water and cars submerged. The floods turned deadly in Brisbane, with a car swept away while leaving a Hungry Jack's drive-through. Melina Saris joins us now, and Mel, the heavy rainfall over the east of the state has finally eased.
It has, Mark. There are still flood warnings in place across Gippsland and the northeast, but the rain eased to scattered showers today. Heavy rain through Gippsland saw 24-hour totals of between 50 to 100 millimetres. The highest falls were 100 millimetres at Mount Waldron Fire Tower, 94 millimetres at Mount Elizabeth. But now we're finally getting a dose of summer heat. I'll have all of those details right after sport, mate.
Finally is right. Thanks, Mel. A drive-by shooting has been caught on camera. See the moment a gunman opened fire on a shop in the northern suburbs. The end of an era for a popular Melbourne circus. Sleepless nights for Boris Johnson, facing new revelations, calls to resign and a new baby. And Melbourne's extraordinary running grandfather is lining up for his 100th marathon this weekend. A new appeal has been made for help solving a drive-by shooting at a Reservoir pastry shop. The crime was caught on security cameras and happened in July last year, but the gunman is still on the run. Today, police released vision of the car believed to be involved, as well as the weapon used to fire the shots. Officers also want to speak to this man over the attack. Circus Oz is preparing for its final act, with the Melbourne institution closing after more than 4 decades. The lives of more than 100 performers are now in limbo, just as the arts industry gets back onto its feet.
After 44 years, Circus Oz has run out of tricks. It's no longer eligible for government funding, so is closing its doors.
The board has only one option, which is to wind up Circus Oz. Everybody's upset by that. Nobody sees any joy in any of this. Nobody wanted it to come to this.
Circus Oz relies on government money for 70% of its funding.
So we have 23 staff, casual and full-time staff over at our Collingwood yards. And at any one stage, we have up to 120 performers in our centre in Collingwood, practising, performing, working together. So they're all impacted, plus the 100 members.
The circus has performances scheduled for this year and next. A decision is yet to be made if they will go ahead. It comes as other areas of the arts continue to roar back to life. Large-scale theatre productions like Frozen adding extra shows to cater for the huge demand. And today, Paul Kelly helped launch a new lifeline for the music industry as it recovers from the pandemic, a music market in Collingwood.
It'll be the home for PBS FM. It'll be the home for Songlines. It's going to be the home for The Push, and it'll be an opportunity for great music organisations to come together to collaborate.
Collaborate, create and celebrate music in the $2.5 million space.
I have something I call my home.
Hope Wilson, 7 News.
Gladys Berejiklian has ruled out a tilt at federal politics. There had been a push for the former New South Wales Premier to challenge independent Zali Steggall in the seat of Warringah. Instead, Ms Berejiklian has announced she'll pursue a career in the private sector. Boris Johnson has welcomed a new baby in what's been a tumultuous week for the UK Prime Minister. He's facing ongoing pressure to resign over lockdown Christmas parties and a donation that paid for his home renovations.
Boris Johnson heads into hospital to visit his wife and baby daughter, born this morning. But overshadowing this happy time, turmoil at Downing Street.
Have you got anything to say about the party at Downing Street?
His advisers left to dodge questions.
Are you planning to resign?
About the growing number of controversial Christmas parties held last year.
Much of the public now are very angry that when they followed the rules, Boris Johnson's team were having events, parties, wine, cheese, laughter, jokes. It's not funny anymore. It's disgraceful.
There's now 7 lockdown do's alleged. 5 have dates. 3 are being investigated.
If during the course of the work any evidence emerges of behaviour that is potentially a criminal offence, the matter will be referred to the police and the Cabinet Office's work may be paused.
Adding to the Prime Minister's woes, Boris Johnson's Conservative Party was today fined almost £18,000 for a controversial donation to cover a lavish flat refurbishment here at 11 Downing Street. This on a day Omicron cases nearly doubled in the UK.
I think anyone would admit that this episode has been damaging for the government.
Sleepless nights ahead for Boris Johnson for more reasons than his newborn. In London, Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
An American rapper claims he had no idea fans were hurt during a deadly concert crush in Texas. Travis Scott has explained why he didn't stop the show when the crowd surged, leaving hundreds injured and 10 people dead.
I stopped it like a couple times to just make sure everybody was okay. And I just really go off the, the fans' energy as a collective, call and response. And I just didn't hear that.
Scott says he was only told of the deadly outcome after the show. More than 140 lawsuits have been lodged with a damages bill that could soar towards $4 billion. A cargo truck crammed with more than 100 people has flipped and crashed into a bridge in southern Mexico. At least 49 passengers were killed. Investigators say the sheer weight of the truck's cargo caused it to tip. A Rowville grandfather will run his 100th marathon this weekend. The Metro Trains employee will mark the impressive milestone in a special way when he crosses the finish line at the MCG.
George Dyer has been counting down to this Sunday.
Bit of a crazy milestone, 100 marathons this weekend.
The 57-year-old grandfather ran his first marathon in Melbourne at age 39. His running journey has taken him across Australia and to 16 countries around the world.
Young Fri in Switzerland, it was just a beautiful spot. Dingle in Ireland, Reykjavik in Iceland, Varna in Bulgaria.
To mark his century, he'll raise a cricket bat as he crosses the finish line.
I work for Metro Trains and I've organised at Flinders Street Station at about the 40k mark for the station staff to come bring it out to me, and I'll run the last 2k's down to the G carrying the bat.
He credits his family and mates at the Knox Athletics Club for inspiring him to keep fit.
George says his 100th race definitely won't be his last. If travel restrictions don't get in the way, he plans to run up to 20 marathons in 2022.
I've booked in for Berlin Marathon in September, the next weekend to London Marathon, and the following weekend after that to Chicago Marathon.
Sunday will mark his 50th marathon in Australia.
I've travelled the world a bit now, and people who think that the world's better out there, we've got it great here. Melbourne's just sensational.
Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Our police are returning to classrooms in schools across Victoria in a new push to put them face to face with children. Plus, a mum ordered to face trial for forcing her daughter to marry with deadly consequences. Why are radio shock jocks being banned from buying a gun? A Shepparton mother has been committed to stand trial for forcing her daughter into an arranged marriage with a stranger. 2 months after Sakia Hadari's wedding, the 21-year-old was murdered by her older husband. Her mother, Sakina Muhammad Jan, has pleaded not guilty to coercing her daughter into marrying the man in return for a $15,000 dowry. If convicted, she would become the first person in Australia successfully prosecuted on forced marriage charges. Radio personality Kyle Sandilands is fighting police in court after he was denied a gun owner's licence. The broadcaster's bid to buy a pistol and rifle for competitive shooting has been blocked. New South Wales police are concerned about his links to King's Cross identity John Ibrahim and convicted drug trafficker Simon Main. Sandilands already holds a handgun licence. Frontline police will be in classrooms next year to help give children advice on issues like drugs, cyber safety and family violence. The program has been developed after consultation with teachers and students.
Sometimes it can be as simple as a kick of the footy for these police members to break down barriers.
Just letting them know that we're just ordinary people.
It's been absolutely phenomenal.
Judy Anderson is the assistant principal at Wheelers Hill Secondary College. She's seen firsthand the difference it makes.
They lose that stigma because they're connecting with the students, and that's so important.
Well, police have always played an integral part in schools. The school's engagement program has been upgraded. Specialist and frontline police will deliver targeted messages around crime prevention, road and cyber safety, and how to party safely.
Whether it is that we talk about road safety or a criminal element, then that's something that we're able to then tailor toward the school and really help.
Real messages delivered by real people who also happen to be dressed in blue.
I look a bit different. I've got tattoos all over me. My job is to just break down those relationships that they've had with police in the past and just show them that we're here to help and support them.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
A touch of Hollywood has arrived in Melbourne's north. The Heidelberg Park has been transformed as filming begins on a new family comedy movie. Hundreds of locals are involved and we'll take you behind the scenes soon on 7 News. Sports next, and Tim Watson. England is staging a fight back at the Gabba.
They are, Mike. They've been sold. Their captain Joe Root is leading the way, while an injured David Warner set out the innings and is in doubt to bat with bruised ribs. Also ahead, the Windies star to make his Big Bash return while isolating from teammates. The Saints player who challenged an Olympic runner at the team's training session on the track. And the Aussie duo sweeping their way to history at the Winter Olympics. Welcome back. Joe Root is living up to his rating as the world's best batsman, leading England's fight back on day 3 of the first Ashes test. At stumps, the tourists trailed by just 58 runs after Australia started the day in a commanding position.
If you can't beat them, join them. Gabba Day 3, a banana bender. Time to charge ahead.
Absolutely smoked over long off. This Test match cricket.
Batting with the tail, Travis Head's sensational counter-attack continued.
Moen into the onside.
A Gilchrist-like 150, better than a runner ball, but running out of partners, Head took one for the team, 152 out of 425 and a lead of 278.
Been a good morning. Make the most of it this afternoon, hopefully.
Could Rory Burns survive an over?
Big shout, gone!
Spared from a pair by review, the English openers just reached lunch intact. David Warner nursed injured ribs, courtesy of Ben Stokes yesterday. But relief was brief for Burns.
He's gone, he touched it.
Paddy Perfect does it again, stranded for 325 days.
Oh!
Lyon must wonder if 400's ever coming. Say what you like about Stark.
He gets something on it. Carey says yes.
He's a wicket taker. 2 down. Hazelwood was sure he had Milan. He saw a hot spot. Third umpire didn't.
Okay, there's nothing there, just flares there at the moment.
Snicko technology hadn't made it past Queensland's border. By royal decree, Milan and Root started fighting back.
Starting to look really good, Joe Root.
Most runs in a year by an Englishman, with the enigmatic Milan as an ally, both past 50, a gripping battle between the skippers. The best in the world with mutual respect, only a wounded knee threatened to uproot Joe. Both are unbeaten in the 80s, something to really sing about, and a fight back even Aussies can applaud. Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
The Melbourne Stars have called on some big guns for their first home game at the MCG. Mitch Cleary is there amidst the strict COVID protocols. Won't be making it easy for a huge recruit.
Tim, West Indian megastar Andre Russell will join Marcus Stoinis and Nathan Coulton-Isle as inclusions in a Stars lineup that was embarrassed just 5 days ago. Russell has arrived in Australia this week and passed a range of COVID tests, but will be still subjected to a bizarre set of Cricket Australia rules where he must isolate 2 metres from players, sit in a different dugout to teammates, and has undergone a separate warm-up. The West Indian arrived in Melbourne with Stars recruit KS Ahmed at lunchtime today after quarantining in Sydney for 72 hours and is well aware of what he's in for.
Well, it's a rule, so we have to take these rules serious, so I don't have a problem. Once I'm on the field, I'll try my best to keep it together, not high-fiving. If I get a wicket, I'll see who can remember and keep their composure.
The Sydney Thunder have won the toss and have elected to bowl against the Stars. Concussed Australian opener Will Pucovski in the 7 commentary box for the clash straight up after the cricket. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. Collingwood defender Braden Maynard has locked in his future at the club, committing to an extension until 2025. Tom Brown is at Magpies headquarters. And Tom, the team has an extra training session tonight.
Tim, Maynard's signature is a big boost for Pies fans and indeed the team. That was a priority amongst Graham Wright and his team off-field. Next in their sights, of course, will be the signature of Darcy Moore, who's a potential captain the next couple of years. And Moore now must decide whether he wants to sign before his free agency year. You mentioned training, Tim, behind me, the Pies training with their AFLW side in front of a pretty reasonable crowd tonight. The Giants, meantime, have resolved their captaincy conundrum, going with 3 captains. One name in particular amongst the players stood out, Toby Green. They say good things come in threes. Perhaps the AFL's most controversial star. In the Players' Survey, sources say Toby Green was teammates' #1 choice.
It's reflected in what the playing group thought as well. So, it's obviously I've got a bit to work on, and I'm well aware of that, and so is everyone else.
Josh Kelly wasn't far behind. The star midfielder admitting free agency discussions were a distraction this season.
It probably did weigh me down without realising, but now to have that in the past and be committed to the Giants is really exciting.
Coniglio might have mixed emotions. He became sole captain, reluctant to share the role with Phil Davis. Sources saying Giants boss Dave Matthews backed Coniglio in.
It should be what the group wants, and I think to go from having 2 to 1 and now 3. It's great flexibility for the group.
And appointed to Brad Hill's fitness at St Kilda, Olympic runner Stuart McSween joined training, giving players an 80-metre head start over 500 metres. The Saints fan hauling in every player post-training except Hill.
Tom Brown, 7 News.
For the first time, Australia will compete for medals in curling at the Winter Olympics. Tali Gill and Dean Hewitt booked their place for Beijing in the mixed event after an unbeaten run at the qualifying tournament in the Netherlands, conquering South Korea in the final.
Feels unreal, yeah. It's still sinking in.
It's a tough battle, growing up in Australia, trying to get on enough ice to, perform against these countries which have dedicated ice all the time and are basically professionals.
The Winter Olympics start February 4 here on 7, and Mike will need to brush up on our curling.
Yeah, I'll get right onto that. Boom, boom. Ending the year on a good note. Have a good holiday.
Thank you. I'll see you in the new year.
OK, thanks, Tim. Mel is next with the forecast, and we're finally getting a dose of summer.
We are, Mike. There's plenty of sunshine on the way and hardly any wet weather in sight. I'll have all of those details right after the break. Today was our last cool day. From this weekend, we begin a warm and sunny stretch. The city started on 13.5 and made it to a top of 17.8. Outside now, it is still sitting on 17 degrees. Heavy rain overnight eased to scattered showers through East Gippsland, delivering a further 10 or so millimetres on top of those 24-hour totals of up to 100 millimetres. There are a number of flood warnings in place through Gippsland and the northeast. Major flooding is possible along the Snowy River from Basin Creek to Orbost. Taking a look at the satellite, a deep low pressure system which brought us the heavy rain and showers will gradually move east tomorrow. A high, which is sitting south of Tasmania, is also moving east, extending a ridge over Victoria this weekend. So the temperature will gradually start to rise, increasing day by day. We'll begin in the mid to high 20s across Victoria by Sunday, and as we get into Monday, most parts of the state will reach the 30s. It'll be hot in the north, climbing closer to 40 degrees. Around the nation tomorrow, sunny in Brisbane, a top of 30, cloudy in Sydney, sunny and 29 degrees in Adelaide, and drizzly at times in Hobart. But for us in Victoria, showers and drizzle continue across Gippsland, easing during the afternoon. The Central and Otway Ranges could also see some light showers tomorrow morning. The rest of the state is partly cloudy. The north gets a little more sunshine than most. Closer in, partly cloudy over the suburbs. There is just the slight chance of a light shower over in the northwestern suburbs tomorrow morning. Otherwise, we're dry with southerly winds, but the sunshine will help our temperatures to climb a little higher than the past few days. We're in the low to mid-20s. A partly cloudy day in the city tomorrow, 12 degrees overnight before a lovely top of 23. Sunday is mostly sunny with a top of 25. Plenty of sunshine on Monday, heading for a top of 32 degrees. Tuesday is cloudy, 23. There's a 50% chance of a light shower on Wednesday, 22. Partly cloudy, 21 on Thursday. And Friday, partly cloudy with a top of 29. Finally, that summer weather has arrived. It looks like a great weekend, Mike.
That's terrific. We're losing you to maternity leave. We're going to miss you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm heading off for my break and to have little bubs.
Tim says to get some sleep.
Thank you, Tim. Good advice.
OK. 7 News can tonight bring you a behind-the-scenes look at a Hollywood film shoot here in Melbourne. Filming has begun in the northern suburbs on family comedy Woody Woodpecker 2.
Hidden away in Heidelberg, Victoria's very own slice of Hollywood.
Remember me?
Woody Woodpecker 2 is the latest family comedy from Universal Pictures and streaming giant Netflix. The blockbuster production bypassing LA to instead shoot in Melbourne.
This is a world-class crew generally in Australia. Here in Victoria, one of the things that we wanted to do was double the United States, and it's a camp movie, summer camp movie. So we've got all these deciduous trees, and it feels a little bit more like North America here in Melbourne.
It's also a huge win for the local industry.
Of the 200 people here, about 197 of them today are local Victorians.
Among the many faces on set today, Federal Communications Minister Paul Fletcher. The film, the 27th to be funded by a Commonwealth grant.
It's all about attracting these global productions, which are major economic enterprises, big job generators.
Woody Woodpecker 2 is just one of a number of big-name productions heading for Melbourne. Actor Charlie Hunnam is currently shooting Shantaram in and around the city, while Robbie Williams will be here early next year for a film based on his life.
But it's also about, great Aussie scenery being seen on screens around the world. The tourism benefits of that are very significant.
Woody Woodpecker 2 will fly onto screens in late 2023. Jodie Lee, 7 News.
And that's 7 News from the team. Have a great night.